Well, hello, and welcome to this very important video for those of you who are making presentations or video presentations for this class. This video is super important because it talks about how to cite sources in a presentation or in a video, which looks a little bit different than it does in a paper, but not that different. So let's just jump right into how. Let's start off with what is citing, just in case you don't remember or don't know. So citing is naming the people who gave you information that you used in your project. These are your sources, and we name them to give them credit. We also name them to give ourselves credit. So these people whose names you're going to give are the sources of lots of different kinds of information. I think most people know that whenever you use someone else's exact words, like a phrase or a sentence or a paragraph, you put quotation marks around it, these little rabbit ears, and you give them credit because they're the person who said those words. For example, if you're quoting Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, you say, I have a dream that one day my little children will be able to blah, blah, blah. Please put that in quotes, because if you don't, you will come off as a big plagiarizer trying to pass off Martin Luther King's words as yours. And also, it's not enough to just put the quotes, but say, according to Martin Luther King Jr. or something like that. But citing doesn't just stop there. A lot of times people forget that you need to cite or give credit to people who give you ideas. So anything that you get from research, it didn't come from your own brain or your own hands, created originally. You need to name the person who wrote it, drew it, took a picture of it, recorded it. So that includes when you summarize something you learned in research or paraphrase a short piece of something that you read online or in a book. You also need to cite photos, illustrations, or videos that you get from off the internet, or charts or graphs that you get from someplace else. Because if you didn't take the photo, draw the picture, originally record the video, or make the chart or graph, if somebody else did it, they deserve credit for their work. You also need to cite any music or sounds that you add that are not free to use. Now notice that I said these are the things that are actually used in your presentation. I think most of us know that if there is a song that you were listening to, but you didn't actually record it in your video or use it in your presentation, basically if your audience cannot hear it, you don't need to cite it. It's the same with words and ideas. So let's say you read something in your research that you don't actually put in there, like it was good information, but then it led you to another source that you actually did put into your presentation. And you quoted the second one or you summarized the second one, but not the first one. Just realized you couldn't see me. Don't put the first one in your citations. If you didn't actually quote it, summarize it, use a picture of it, if we don't hear it or see it, don't worry about it. We don't need to know about it. So there's two flavors of citations. Most people know about the end of text citation. Most people know you need a list of your references or sources at the end. That's great, that's fine. We'll talk about what that's for a little bit later. Where most people mess up, and this is the more important part, especially for a video or a presentation, but also for a paper, they forget about the in-text citation. The in-text citation is in the body paragraphs of your essay where you have a quote and you say, okay, this is the page of the book that the quote came from. Or in the body of your essay, you had a summary of something you read and you said, oh, here's the article that summary came from and the name of the person who wrote it. That's the in-text part. The same thing needs to happen in a video. So let's look at why this matters, especially why the in-text matters actually more than the end of text. First of all, most of you probably realize it helps you avoid plagiarism, like with my example of Martin Luther King Jr. If you are just using someone else's words, and especially if people recognize those words, they're going to say, okay, this person isn't honest. They don't give credit to the people who help them, which of course takes away from your audience's trust in you. And in an academic setting, it can really mess up your grade and even your academic standing within the university. On a larger scale, let's say this is out in the world where people can see it beyond your college or your university, you can get sued if you use someone else's intellectual property without their permission and without giving them credit. So save yourself money and save your grade by just giving credit. And then, as I mentioned before, it builds your credibility. If people say, oh, okay, they are clearly acknowledging that they had help, then that builds your credibility as an humble person, as a person who does your research, as a person who knows how to participate in scholarly conversation that other people have also been participating in. And last but not least, really that end of text citation, that whole list of sources, that's more for verification. Both of them are. The in-text part, I'll give you a quick rundown. If you say, here's a quote from the story that I read, and you say, this is in chapter 13 or line 25, then anybody who's really interested in what you're saying, and hopefully you got them really interested in what you're saying, can turn to chapter 13 or look at line 25 and say, oh, yeah, that says exactly what he said it says. That is exactly what she said. And that, again, builds your credibility. Let's say, though, that they want to know more. They're like, oh, this is really interesting. They've got me thinking more about this book or this poem or this play. Then that list of sources at the end helps them track down the version that you found, especially if it is a work that has been translated. There might be different translations or versions. And just read it for themselves or learn more for themselves and get a bigger picture, which hopefully you inspire them to want to do if you do your job well. So citing does a lot of different things. It's not just plagiarism. It's not just staying out of trouble. It's actually getting you into a conversation and getting your ideas into somebody's mind to the point where they want to look more. So now that we have an idea of why we're doing this and generally how it looks, let's look at some examples. So here's an example from a real student where they had a quote from the text that they were reading. This story was the Saga of Eric the Red. It's an epic tale of the Vikings sailing around. It was originally an oral tradition, and then this student read a version of the book that had chapters and was on the internet. So you notice they have their quote, and then in brackets it says Carlefsini and his company. That's the name of the group of Vikings that the student is referring to in this part of the book. We're now of the opinion that though the land might be choice and good, there would always be war and terror overhanging them from those who dwelt there before them. And then they end their quotes, excellent, good, and they give the chapter number that that quote came from. So that again, anybody who wants to verify can go directly to chapter 13. And since it's on the internet, you can actually do Control F and search the page to find those exact words or phrases. And they verify, okay, this student knows what she's talking about. But I also want to call your attention to the fact that this student created this presentation using Prezi, P-R-E-Z-I, and it's got some images, roughly some mountain stuff in the background, and those are template images that Prezi offers. I cannot possibly recommend using templates. Tweak them, of course, to make them your own, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Use what's available for free that you don't have to cite. Because if you actually went and found on Google search an image of mountains or islands or Viking ships or whatever, and then copied and pasted or inserted that Google image into the document or the presentation, you would have to cite it. 9 times out of 10, you'd have to cite it. So save yourself the work. Just go ahead and use the templates that are available. So we've got a quote that's cited. We've got the template image. Let's look at another one that just has an image. So this is one of my presentations that I've used for another class. You'll see down here at the bottom left corner, I just used some template wording to create a caption to show that this image of the book with the pages folded into a heart, I didn't create that. That's not my book. I didn't fold it up. I didn't use my camera to take that picture. Someone else did. You'll notice a couple of things. You can use this kind of boilerplate language for any captions of any images that you do actually use from Google search or from the web. I got this picture from pexels.com. You can see how to spell it on the screen, P-E-X-E-L-S. That is a really good website for finding stock images that you can use for free. There are others that you can also use if you just search for free image database. You can find some you can use for free. But I gave the name of the website that the image came from. I said photo courtesy of, and then the part in bold. That could be the name of the photographer. So let's say the photographer's name had been John Smith. It would say photo courtesy of John Smith via pexels.com. And then I have a little link there. You see it's italicized and underlined. That means there's a link where you could actually click and go see John Smith's picture in its original context. This image, however, did not have a name for the photographer. Sometimes artists, especially photographers and musicians, might just put their stuff out there because they just want people to use it, and they'll use a Creative Commons license. That's what that CC 1.0 universal, that's what that means, that it's a Creative Commons license and the artist is letting you use it for free, but you still need to acknowledge that you got it from Creative Commons and put the website that you got it from. Now that might seem kind of complicated. You can just look at that wording and use that in any captions you want to add. If it's PowerPoint, just add a text box and adjust the size of the text box. If it's another software, same thing, add the text and adjust the size of it and the look of it. But those two examples kind of get you started. I want to give you a few more tips. Start with good notes, right? Whether it's notes by hand or notes on your device, make sure you note if it's a quote, what page number it comes from. If it's a summary, what page number, chapter, timestamp, etc. it comes from. If it's a video clip, who made it, what website did you get it from? If it is an image, a chart, a graph, again, who made it, where can we find it? That might be a link to a website, it might be a timestamp, a chapter, a page number, a line number, but who and where, keep those in your notes. Good notes save grades. Remember also that the end of the text is basically the same as the works cited, the reference list. Think of it like the credits at the end of the movie. You've done this before, so you're good. But on a formatting tip, remember that the enter key is your friend. The formatting, if you just copy and paste the bibliography you would normally put in a paper, it's probably going to get wonky in PowerPoint or Canva or Prezi. So just use the enter key to make sure the spacing is somewhat readable. Like I said before, I highly advise that you stick to stock images or Creative Commons images, or you use icons, templates, screenshots. And I have a little picture here. So this is a screenshot of what PowerPoint will let you do. You see the first little part right here. Let me see if I can actually use my pen to circle some things. We've got one icon that if you're using PowerPoint, it will let you include a table. This one, second from the left, lets you put in a chart or graph of your own that you don't have to cite. This one is something called Smart Art, and it creates a variety of different kinds of graphs and images and charts for you. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember what this one is, but if you have PowerPoint, you can try it. Below that, I love this one, the little bird with the leaf. That's icons. These are images that represent various different ideas, and they're just simple line drawings that you can pop in to add a little pop, a little flavor, and you can adjust the size of them. This is for video clips. To the left of the video clip, so near the middle, so it's a picture of a mountain, the sun, and it has a magnifying glass. That's going to search the internet for images. And then if you click that icon, there's a little button you can click so that it only gives you stock images or images that are free to use. Of course, click that. That's a little bit different than the bottom left icon, which has the mountain and the sun representing the image, but then it has a little computer screen in front of it, computer monitor. That's going to search images, videos, and things that you have saved to your device. So those are all options that you have if you're using PowerPoint. If you're using another software platform, of course, play around with your options. But I cannot emphasize enough, just doing a Google search and then pasting or inserting what Google gives you, unless you make sure to opt only for things that are royalty free or Creative Commons, you could get yourself into some trouble. So I highly suggest that you either keep it simple or follow these tips. Now, if you have any questions, of course, put those questions in the comments or email me. Otherwise, happy creating, happy citing, happy avoiding plagiarism. See you in the next video.